Off the back of the surprisingly good game changes that are coming in 9.1.5, and based on listening to community feedback, let's today explore what Blizzard could possibly do in a patch 9.2 that would follow a similar path of community engagement with feedback. Something that would please the fans of Shadowlands while also pleasing the people who are not so hot on Shadowlands. Now, one thing, this was originally 5,000 words long. It was packed with loads of lore and flavor that I've almost entirely had to cut out. Sorry, that's what it's like. It's gotta be a YouTube video, not a government report. Okay, first up, goals. My goal is simple. Cover the cosmic ground that will be satisfying to those who like the cosmic stuff, while also delivering a great slice of core Azeroth content. We will resolve Zoval's story, expand the cosmic lore a bit, and, for the end of this, well, finish off Shadowlands in a neat way and put Shadowlands in the Afterlife back in its box. While certain cosmic elements will be escalated today, they will need to be put to rest by the end of this patch and expansion, clearing the way for a more grounded breather expansion. All of that, along with a refocus on what the rewards and content of the game are, and a simplification of systems. So with that said, let's go into what I would say the intro experience should be. The Primus returns, true to his word. He is the key to Zereth Mortis, so that is where we go, to the home of the First Ones. All is quiet, until we come upon Anduin and Zoval. MMO gameplay happens, an epic cinematic happens, and after a classic villain monologue, Anduin is teleported away to the Maw. Zoval heckles us, saying that time does indeed flow strangely in Zereth Mortis and the Shadowlands, and that before we return, Azeroth will already be taken. We've already lost. Or at least we would have. In a final act of sacrifice, the Primus attacks Zoval, buying us time, dying in the process. We rush back through the portal that we'd opened there, and to our horror, we're awaited by Horde and Alliance messengers, saying that Icecrown has completely fallen and the Northrend is at its knees. Draka, who joined us on the journey to Zereth Mortis, then tells us that the Primus slipped her the key and left her a final message. And in that final message, we learn that we can return home to Azeroth. You could say that the Winter Queen and the Emerald Dream could kind of give us a way back there that also gives us a Lifeland glimpse. Also, the Primus tells us what the death of Argus actually meant to Zoval and his plan, and a little bit more of how Azeroth herself fits into all of this, before we already know that she does. The plan of Team Azeroth then is simple. Stop the invasion at Icecrown, denying Zoval a conventional victory, and then, while our forces hold the line, gather ourselves, return to Oribos, and with the Primus's key now in Draka's hands, commence the raid. And before I talk about that raid, which is going to have some humongous plot beats, I must talk about what we will do first. The initial content of Northrend. With the intro experience complete, we arrive at Northrend. This force, led by Bolvar's Ebon Blade and the Silver Hand, plus of course the Sunwalkers, must retake key locations in Icecrown and establish little footholds, little bases, almost harkening back to Wrath of the Lich King. These will set the stage for ongoing world content and further campaign chapters. Who is with us here? Well, we've got Bolvar, we've got the Four Horsemen, Jaina, Thrall, Talia, Bane, Genn. Our combined forces retake the Argent Tournament grounds, building fresh fortifications there, giving it a lick of paint, and really calling back in a little way to patch 3.1's Argent Tournament construction quests. From there then, we try to take key positions across Icecrown. Basically, the plot here is that we know we've got to go to Zereth Mortis, but we know the time flows very strangely there. So if we don't bolster Northrend's defenses, well, by the time we win the raid, we will have already lost the planet. That's the lore thinking as we go in. Once our base is established then, we will do world content across the continent of Northrend, and the new pre-raid campaign. Campaign first, then I'll talk about the raid setting and story, then world content, progression, bunch of design things, and more. Now the why here for the campaign is simple. We want big, cool cosmic event stuff that teases shit really going down. Then we want to deliver and some of that shit really going down. But we want to do that in a way that has a familiar and nostalgic setting, so that players actually feel the stakes of the narrative, rather than us saving Azeroth from afar. Let's talk about the new campaign. Now that we've covered the intro to Zereth Mortis and Northrend, let's talk about narrative content. So in my head, there is a clear pre-raid, post-raid narrative split, with raid completion being required for the post-raid story. There is no renown gate here. You will straight up, in my view of this, have a few hours of narrative content from the get-go. Because damn it, week 1 of a new patch should be exciting. It shouldn't just run out in one day. Here's a few sample pre-raid campaign chapters that I've thought up. One is Bane and the Tonka, because poor old Bane's got to do something in this expansion. Nazgrim and the Orc counterattack, because again, damn it, we need some classic sweaty muscle-bound Orc action that screams Warcraft. And a metal album cover. And frankly, I'm aware that classic Horde content has been sparse, and the players want more of that. Jaina, Kalecgos, and the resurrection of Galakrond, because Galakrond is really spooky, and potentially has a large connection to death, especially if you've listened to our lore walking episode over on our Patreon on Galakrond. This would also be a real neat way of covering the Dawn of the Aspects book in-game, so that people know that, as well as advancing, well, that story, and us seeing Jaina and her partner work together, so we can get some of the character work in. Ideally then, I'd have a 4th chapter cleansing Vordrasil with Malfurion and Tyrande, because I do think we need more classic Night Elf action that is away from the Night Warrior stuff. Then, of course, we would have a very short chapter that leads directly into the raid, which I'm about to lay out, but first, here's a few thoughts for the post-raid campaign stuff. So, what about after the raid then? Well, narratively, we do want to have more content. And gameplay-wise, we do want to have a reason to continue fighting the Mossworn forces. I think that would be a neat thing. The Mossworn will still be a threat, and we'll just set it up so that they're led by a Dreadlord once Zovaal is defeated and Anduin is freed. You could even tie that into Denathrius if you wanted to. And not only does this make continued world content make sense post-raid, but it also, again, teases that idea that Denathrius is out there somewhere. It lets us build up some of that future Dreadlord plot, and just that Denathrius hasn't went down with the ship. Okay, post-raid campaign chapters I think should include things such as directly epiloguing the raid, and then resolving the immediate storylines. I would have another that sets up our groundwork for exiting the Shadowlands in a neat way. I'd have another one take us to Ulduar. Let's see what's going on there. In another, we would venture to the depths of Icecrown with Bolvar, where he would actually see parts of the Citadel that were even hidden to him, because of course the Dreadlords built that place under the Jailer's specifications. That's a few ideas. Patch 9.2.5 is a big part of my plan though. That'll be TLDR'd at the end because it's a true epilogue patch. Let's talk about the raid. Raid time. Okay, our goal here, make the Cosmic cool, pay off established plot from Legion, and honor Warcraft's core setting, which is Azeroth. So let's go. The final pre-raid campaign sees the skies of Northrend ablaze with light, as we see an ungodly torrent of dark, twisted anima rushing down into Icecrown Citadel. We do not know what has happened, but we do know that it is bad, and that if we do not take the fight to Zovaal, he will just simply win and unmake us. So, the combined effort of the Covenants, all of our might, we travel to Zereth Mortis. And once there, we start to face down Zovaal's closest Mossworn lieutenants, powerful constructs of the first ones, all while Zovaal is taunting us. We reach Zovaal, and right as the fight starts, it's actually Mal'Ganis, who, true to his word at the end of patch 9.1, is of course on the Jailer's team. Zovaal is, in fact, about to launch the next stage of his plan, and thanks to Mal'Ganis' deception, we think we're stranded in Zereth Mortis. So we defeat the Mal'Ganis encounter. And then something is noticed. First One's technology responds to you, the player, just as it did with the Oribos Waystone in the Maw. No sigils are needed here. Your connection to Azeroth is enough to activate this First One's technology. Now, this follows Shadowlands' established lore, and it furthers the place of the player's character's connection to Azeroth, which will be important later, and also the position of Azeroth as the center of the Great Cycle, as shown in Grimoire of the Shadowlands. So, we give chase to Zovaal, but we find the maw is completely empty. All of its stored anima, everything, has just been dumped into Icecrown's Citadel. So, Zovaal has prepared all the tech that he needs from Zereth Mortis. He has got all of the fuel for that, all of the anima in Icecrown, and he's ready to basically do the final part of his plan. Our next boss fight then, it's Anduin Wrynn, atop Icecrown Citadel, because obviously. And Anduin is using the magic that bested Bolvar, and he is wielding Kingsmorn, a blade that is imbued with Arthas' spirit. As we fight Anduin, the Citadel rocks and shakes. It's a big, big, big fight. And in the Anduin Defeat cinematic, it fires into a big flash. All that anima shoots off to the distance, straight south and into Gorobal, Sargeras' sword, which is stuck in Silithus. Because while Zovaal did set the Burning Legion into motion, and while Zovaal did shape the direction of the Burning Legion through his Dreadlord agents, he could not have predicted Sargeras' final, rather spiteful move to stab the planet. But it was a pretty welcome one. So now reactivated, the Dark Titan's sword is weakening Azeroth, just as it was when it was all powered up at the end of Legion. So now she is weakened. All Zovaal has to do is capture her soul. How does he do this? Via something I've invented. It's from Zereth Mortis. It's called the Engine of Creation, or something like that. It's an ancient machine that is to the universe as the world engines of the Storm Peaks are to Azeroth. Yeah, I know it can feel like a MacGuffin, but it's just kind of the hand we're dealt in a way. So we teleport to Silithus, only to find complete chaos and our final two fights. Our penultimate fight is a grand First One's being, their equivalent of a Titan Keeper like Odin. The final fight, Zovaal himself. This is, of course, an epic multi-stage encounter where, as we fight, we see Azeroth's life essence be consumed by Zovaal through Gorobal, literally increasing his size. He's getting more and more and more powerful. The skies are darkening. The toll on Azeroth, in fact, throws the elements out of balance, meaning that the earth bubbles, brutal rains batter us, lightning is illuminating the battlefield. Imagine just all the effects are just thrown in. So the fight is a visual feast. Far less Sylvanas 9.1, far more Argus 7.3. Before I explain more though, I need to drop you a lore note. Blizzard told us in interviews that the Pantheon of Death are just as strong as the Pantheon of Order, if not more powerful. So what size was Sargeras at his full power? He was the size of a planet. What size was Aman'Thul at full power when he ripped Y'Sharj out of the world? Massive, the size of a planet. Why then would Zovaal wielding Gorobal, absorbing that energy? I mean, Gorobal canonically is one of the most powerful weapons in existence. Why would Zovaal not effectively be the size of a planet eventually? So the way this works is that he's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And as this fight goes on, our situation is getting more and more dire. Until Azeroth whispers to us, like she would whisper to Magni. This is supposed to be a massive moment for the lore. Some of the first words ever heard from Azeroth. And she tells us to buy her time. Like with the Titans in 7.3, her blessing empowers us and pushes us forward, keeping Zovaal busy while she musters the strength to work her plan. And as the fight progresses, we start to see the First One's technology get more and more and more intense. Zovaal is getting more and more and more powerful. And if we're defeated and Azeroth doesn't have time to enact her plan, Azeroth's soul will be absorbed by the Engine of Creation, and we'll get a situation where Zovaal will be at the most full power you could possibly imagine, and a stage where we can remake creation. But of course that doesn't happen. We hold him off, and at 5% health, it happens. The big cinematic. The Zovaal in front of us disappears as the Engine of Creation roars into life, and a great shadow falls on Azeroth. Using the technology of creation and Azeroth's essence as fuel, Zovaal remakes himself, taking the gargantuan form of a full-power titan like Sargeras. It's victory for him, or so he thought. Because what he didn't account for was our connection to Azeroth, that she could speak to us, and that we could work with her and give her the time that she needs to manifest her spirit. And in a moment, completely obviously reminiscent of the end of Warcraft 3 Reign of Chaos, mixed with the end of the Legion expansion, and amped up to 11, Azeroth appears in the sky. Fully formed, her full form revealed, in a spirit form. And she destroys Zovaal. Now, she's not ready to hatch, so to speak. She can only sustain her form for but the briefest moment. And when we come to, we find that Magni has fallen dormant once more. Azeroth whispers a final waning message to us as her spirit dissipates. You look up to the skybox is glowing a brilliant blue and yellow. Constellations, auroras. Azeroth is not dead, but between Gorabal and the best efforts of Zovaal, her strength is utterly spent. Azeroth spent the last of her consciousness to save us and to save reality. It's going to be a long time before we see or hear from her again. There we go. Now this, essentially, I know, is a combination of the ending of Warcraft 3 Reign of Chaos and the ending of Legion. And I also know it does not involve a big cliffhanger or a super clear lead into the next expansion. And I want to justify that to you. And it revolves around Zovaal's story, keeping the player's canonical power in check via Azeroth's blessing being the reason why we can stand against Zovaal, and it puts Cosmic Warcraft back in its box while also honouring its scale. Look, players just don't care about Zovaal. He has not been a successful villain, but players do care about Azeroth. This raid would take us to some cool locales, to old nostalgic locales, and give us heaps of spectacle. It would absolutely push the lore forward, while also keeping its scope bounded. For after this, we are back to the way things were before Shadowlands, with of course, a lot of lessons being learned. Take this as the finale of the first cosmic arc of Warcraft. One that is so over the top that a breather is almost needed. And in a way, with Gorabal destroyed, with Azerite well and truly dormant, the state of Azeroth is back to pre-Legion levels, finally allowing space for the peoples and cultures of Azeroth to breathe and to develop, so that we can re-establish the core of Warcraft before we move forward again. That's the raid. Now let's talk about world content design. Each zone of Northrend is in a state of flux, and there's a key difference in this world content. It is event-based, not quest-based. Now, events are similar to world quests, in my head, but progression of them is shared between all participating players. You see an event on your map, you fly to it, you join the fight, earning a bronze, silver, or gold medal based on your participation. Yes, Guild Wars 2 does things extremely like that, and I would say this would make it feel far more like an MMO. Remember the Legion pre-patch event. Now here's the kicker. Events lead into other events. Defeat a swell of Mossworn troops assaulting Valgard, and 2 new events may spawn. One of them could be to sack a base. Another could be to defeat an elite. And once done, those 2, a further event could spawn, as we are able to push the Mossworn forces all the way back and really push them out. And the thing is that if players don't help and don't do these events, then the events will despawn. The Mossworn will win, and a new event will spawn based on them winning. So, if that happens too much, then you'll actually have to retake your base of operations. Valgard, in this example. Of course, you'd still be rewarded for doing so. RNG can even be thrown in here. As an example, if you complete Event A, then Event B will spawn. But another time you could complete Event A, but Event C may spawn. All to provide you with a little bit of variety and to give us a feeling of a war that is spanning all of Northrend zones. You have these going on a per zone basis, such that there's basically a push and pull, a bit of a tug of war between all of the zones, with them having their own unique little themes to them, so they feel different. Now these will focus on core Horde and Alliance fortifications across the continent, as well as important locations to the original Northrend factions. Because it's about honouring Azeroth. Why not defend Northrend with the allied Sons of Hodir and Titanforged? Or, after defending Valgard, end up helping the Tonka lead a final push? It's about honoring Warcraft. The design goal here is to lift the best of FF14 Fates and Guild War 2 events and then bring them to that Blizzard level of polish. Look, Blizzard has historically done the best when they've borrowed ideas and executed them masterfully. So this is our bread and butter content. Meanwhile, for Icecrown, we will have similar events going on, just that they're a little bit more themed on us attacking and trying to push the Mossworn out. Completing them can unlock maybe small little bases where you could maybe get the odd daily quest to consolidate and reinforce the area, lots of little things like that. On top of that, you'll have the usual zone objectives such as, the rares, and perhaps a sprinkling of neat vignettes. There's the basics here. Ongoing war in Northrend that doubles down on World of Warcraft as an open-world MMORPG. Let's talk then about progression and rewards. We'll have two factions. For now, let's just call them Defenders of Azeroth and Northrend's Vengeance. Those are very hokey names, I know. Get better ones later, whatever. So, the Defenders of Azeroth faction, you could say, is the main one for character progression as far as power goes. They'll sell a wide range of catch-up gear that comes along with reputation-gated rewards that span from a lowish base item level to just above the first 8 bosses of the raid on normal difficulty. Now, unlike patch 9.1, the rep gate will not be gated in a hard way by weeks. It'll be gated in progress, and it won't be as stringent. They'll also sell a set of, and this is a cool new thing, upgradable heirloom weapons that are designed for power levelers. These are going to have a unique transmogrification appearance. Your progress with them can also lock a temporary Argent Tournament Hearthstone temp, because you don't want to override the one that people got from doing the tournament in the old days, as well as a customizable steed where you'll be able to customize your saddle, your horse color, your horse type, your armor color, your armor type, and then even put on your guild emblem or the emblem of your faction or any Northrend faction that you are exalted with. That's a big new way to do a mount, isn't it? It's a lot of work for a mount, but that is actually what it takes. Because machine gunning out loads of recolors just doesn't cut it for players anymore. It's not new and it's not exciting. Transmogs are then another focus of this content with our second faction, which is called Northrend's Vengeance. It's heavily involved in mogs and player customization, and they have 0 player power attached to them. You can do this basically where they have a big weekly quest, a sort of fill up the bar thing by killing Mossworn rares, completing events, and so on and so forth. This can get you a big chunk of weekly rep. But wait, rep here is different to any other rep in the game in a way. I'll get to that. Then, if you want to grind this rep, just have at it, it's not gated. Events will give you rep. Killing mobs in the events will give you rep. This will help to keep those events be populated for a longer time. For everybody. It will let people progress slowly and efficiently via the weekly, or quickly via grinding. And fitting to it being the Argent Tournament, you will get a new, via this, base set of transmog armor, and as you progress, you'll be able to unlock new tints for that armor. The whole goal here is to give people cool new transmogrification tools. So that is a sort of generic set, but the faction is called Northrend's Vengeance, isn't it? Well, that's because they're also going to have unique cosmetic rewards that represent each of the Northrend factions, from the dragons to the Sons of Hodir to the Kalawak. And here is the unique twist. There's only one rep bar, it's only a Paragon rep, but there's no RNG. Your Paragon box will contain their currency token, as well as a nice chunk of raw gold. And you will earn Paragon boxes for these guys way faster than you're used to for the current reps in the game. The currency that you get from them is just spent on their vendor, unlocking whatever pieces and dies you want. Now, given World of Warcraft's technical limitations, this is you just unlocking more color options, color tints, like with the Legion artifact weapon appearances. I mean, let's be real, an artist opening a file, changing the color a bit, and exporting it really does not take that long. But wait, there's a final twist. Similar to Anima, isn't it? but it's a little different and it's very standalone. Just the idea that everything that you do contributes to this. Now, the big difference here is that, the events that we're talking about, they are more like Guild Wars 2. They're like fun, multiplayer zergs where you're really rushing across the world with loads of people doing things. It's really harnessing what people loved about the Legion pre-patch invasions. And then the big thing, if you do anything in this patch, you get Northrend's Vengeance rep. If you do the raid, if you do dungeons, you'll get rep for these guys. So this basically just makes it a cool new way of doing all of that stuff. That gives people loads of options, loads of mogs, and can finally use the countless unused recolors that are already in the game just waiting to be earned. This patch takes a radically different approach to player power by reintroducing Justice points to the game, extending Valor points over to raiding, and bringing back class tier sets. For Mythic Plus players, things will operate as they have, just the Justice points are used to upgrade your Mythic Plus gear to the item level equivalent of around a normal raid. Yeah. Valor points, those are for Mythic Plus upgrades beyond that point. For Raiders then, a 2 set of tier gear can be purchased with VP, as has been done in the past, as well as a selection of gear with item levels between normal and heroic. Maybe even you could say a few pieces of heroic gear, but they'd be quite expensive. Just something like that to give people those more clear goals to work towards. You can then work in Valor points into a daily reward from other forms of content. The Great Vault will then be upgraded to provide Valor points, the cap for VP will be increased, and you will earn double Valor points on your ult if your main has capped for the week. Just stealing that from Mists of Pandaria. Legendary crafting materials can be purchased for Justice points, by the way. That does greatly increase the accessibility of that system, which will need to happen because in this patch, 2 legendaries will be equipable at the same time by a character. Justice points then come from just anything that's group PvE. Simple. Conduit upgrades, those can be targeted to the specific conduit you want. The high item level ones can be done with Valor points and Conquest points. Catch-up upgrades with Honor and JP. Nice and simple. This patch adds in tier gear with class sets, bonuses. Nothing else is needed. Your set is your set, no upgrades, no funny business. Nothing like corruptions or domination shards. Nice and simple and easier to execute. Soulbinds will not be expanded upon further here. Covenant Renown track stuff, just have it be finished, whatever. Let design simplicity buy us more content, because that is what players love. Dungeons and PvP. Look, I'll keep this one real brief. If possible, a mega dungeon would of course be great. If possible, a regular dungeon would be great. Hell, even refitting the Wrath of the Lich King ICC dungeons, retooling those with Mossworn enemies and adding them to Mythic Plus, that could be a really smart way to get new content, right? That's just a few ideas. For PvP then, it depends on resources. I would advocate for a PvP hub located within the Argent Tournament, with an area for dueling and a Gurubashi Arena style event. It would also be awesome if we could have a new battleground in Northrend. You could even theme it around a friendly war game to train our troops. Maybe you could even put some Mossworn enemies in there and have a little bit of PvPvE if you wanted to really spice it up. That's PvP. And mostly that's the patch, because we don't have that much time left in the video, and I want to talk about patch 9.2.5, Homecoming. Homecoming, that is the name of our epilogue patch, and it's the final part of really the puzzle that I've wanted to build here. Because I think an epilogue is extremely important, and I think we simply cannot do a patch 8.3 again, and just be like, bam, he's dead, 70 gold, away you go, done. Throw it on a book. Can't do that. Okay. Shadowlands narrative in the epilogue. We close the veil between worlds for good. The next time Thrall sees Draka, it's because Thrall will be dead. The setting simply cannot have free and easy travel to the afterlife persist. So there's big character send-offs, tearful departures, mining all of the emotional depth that we can as son has to leave father. We aid then the Eternals in the reformation of the Shadowlands, for while Zovaal was an irredeemable dickhead, Well, it has to be that he had a few decent points to make. And with that done, it's time to go home. If Sylvanas is still alive, both factions will have her stand trial together, and in-game we will work out what to do with her. Then the Alliance storyline will center on Anduin's return, and the political intrigue that follows. Some people will see him tarnished. The House of Nobles prefers Turalyon, while Shaw and Genn prefer Anduin. Even think about the patch 2.5 Ul'dah content in Final Fantasy XIV: A Realm Reborn, as an example. Concerns over the Holy Light are there, and if you've seen our videos, you know why people should be concerned about the light, and that can help to directly tease our next expansion. Now, speaking of that light, the Horde storyline refocuses really on them finding themselves again as the Horde, and also how they respond to troubled murmurings out of Stormwind. Maybe even Matthias Shaw leaks to them. For world content then, I would try to get a series of simple reps in Northrend, something like that, something centered around restoring the continent. These could even be simple things like chopping down some trees, grabbing some ore and a few rocks to help rebuild a base. And ideally, you'd maybe use some phasing there to reflect the restoration of these areas, and Zadormi could even help us out with phasing there. Then the more new rewards there, the better, but again, if not, there are countless Wrath of the Lich King recolors that are sitting just completely unused in the game files, and those could be used too. That's patch 9.2.5 Homecoming. I do have a final thing. I'm going to level with you. I kind of left Sylvanas out here. Whoops. It wasn't really because I tried to, it's just when I wrote what I thought would resonate with the broadest catchment of WoW players, Sylvanas didn't have a massive part to play. Now, she can fit into all of this in many different ways. She could feature in the Zereth Mortis intro, essentially acting as our informant. We can have her make maybe a decent case that while Zovaal is evil and must be stopped, that he did actually have a few decent points to make that we really should think about. Now, this will be important to the expansion's resolution, how we deal with Sylvanas, so she has to be treated right. Another natural place to put her could be the Anduin raid encounter. Have her somehow follow us and try to undo the mistake that she made. That would show some character development for her, which could be neat, and it could be a victory for the true Anduin. As a final parallel, perhaps she could succumb to the very same magic that she used to defeat Bolvar. If we're trying to keep Sylvanas around, then honestly, I just think we have to have her maybe go into her own self-imposed exile or something. And if she dies, then I think we'll meet her again in the epilogue patch and learn of some new role or what's happening with her in the Shadowlands. But anyway, after this, it'll be a long time before we see her again. Because as much as some people love Sylvanas, and I know they do, I think we can all agree that having Sylvanas drive multiple World of Warcraft expansions in a row could get a bit samey and wouldn't be good. Okay, what do you think? This is basically my plan. It would be to go back to basics with systems, to try to innovate on rewards and on world content, to tell stories that are rooted in the Azeroth that we know, to do a big cool raid, and to maintain engagement in the game as a game and also as a narrative via an epilogue patch. I've tried to do this while ensuring there aren't many unknown unknowns in this design and as little systemic bloat as is possible to confuse things, because I think that simplicity with innovative rewards and lots of good content, I think that is the way forward for World of Warcraft, at least for now. So let me know what you think. That's just like rough thoughts that I jotted down one day. Let me know what you would like to see. Do you think that Zereth Mortis actually is where this entire patch should take place? Should we really double down on how Tazavesh was super cool and try to do something there? Let me know what you think. And I suppose that's it for me, and I'll see you next time.